Good morning and welcome to Pro Talks. I'm glad you decided to join us today. And today we're going to be talking about evaluating payroll for the year end. And so I've made kind of a few points and checklists for you that I hope will help you. And so let's get started. Number one, when we're thinking about payroll and the year end, verify your employer and employee data. Make sure that you're verifying that. Make sure that you're EIN number is correct, that your legal name of your corporation, your church, or nonprofit is correct. Make sure your address is correct in the system. Also, make sure the employees' addresses are correct and their name and social security number. Very, very important because if they are not correct, you will have to file a correction, and you don't want to have to do that. So just go through, takes a little bit of time, but believe me, it's well worth it. So make sure that you check all of those things because on those, the 941s, your EIN number needs to be correct, and on all your W2, W3s, they need to be correct so that you don't have any corrections in January where you have to file a W2C or a W3C or a 941X. You don't want to have to do that. So make sure you verify all your data. Number two, in evaluating your payroll, verify that employees which ones receive retirement plans. Make sure that you have everybody that receives a retirement plan. It might be that the church or entity is paying for it. It might be coming out of their paycheck, but you want to make sure that you have everything correct in there for a retirement plan. And that goes in box 13 on your W-2s. Should show up there, as well as your medical and medical insurance. So make sure that you have all that taken care of as well if they receive a retirement. Which employees get a retirement plan? You do have to report that on your W-2s. And so you want to make sure that that's one of the things that a lot of people overlook. Verify that all the federal and state taxes have been filed and paid. Make sure all your 941s have been filed and paid. Make sure that all your state income tax, any kind of filings, a lot of times states have filings besides a payment. So you have quarterly filings as well as monthly filings and also payment. Make sure all of those are done by the year end. And so they should have been done on time, but if they haven't, double check those and make sure that you have everything filed and reconciled and make sure the numbers are accurate. Like I said, takes a little bit of time, but boy, does it save you in the end. If you do have to do a correction, doing it in the same year is so much less confusion with the government regulations, with the IRS or with the state. Make sure you do that. Have adequate forms for the year end. This happens a lot. Sometimes we think, oh, we'll just pick them up in January. Well, sometimes with shipping, with things the way they've been this year, make sure you have all the adequate forms, your W-2, your W-3, any kind of 1099s that you would have, whichever allocation of 1099 you would have. And make sure that you have those ready and available and ready to print, because as of January 31st, all your employees should have their W-2s, and you should be sending those to the IRS by the 31st as well. So it's all January 31st is the deadline on that. So make sure you have your forms in order. Remind employees that coming up, maybe shoot everybody an email. Remind them if their situations change, they need to change their W-4. That's their dependent record. Maybe they got married, or maybe they had a child, or whatever the case may be, but remind them and offer them. I usually send an email and tag a new W-4 form to it, and they can fill that out and get it back to me, and we can change that in the system for 2021 year. So very important there. Verify that you are not taking out FICA for ministers. I wanted to bring this up because so many of churches and nonprofits, and especially churches with pastoral housing and things like that, they take out FICA, Social Security, and Med on their pastors in their salary. Well, that is incorrect. You are not supposed to do that. So make sure that if you're doing that, that needs to change for 2021. You really should be changing it and reporting it correctly for 2020. And so you want to make sure that you're in box one, which gross compensation. Then you want to make sure your withholding tax is in there, but nothing on the Social Security line 2 and 3, and nothing on the Medicare, for the gross wages or the withholding, because you do not withhold that from a minister or clergy. So you want to make sure of that. That's one of the major problems that a lot of churches and nonprofits have. And by the way, it's good to have somebody that understands that doing your payroll. Maybe you have another company or you have a software, but you need to make sure those things are being taken care of. Makes a huge difference in what your pastors are paying in income tax as well. So make sure that you take care of that. Make sure you have pastor's housing allowance projected for 2021. You should already be getting this in line and getting it from your pastor. Are you going to keep their housing the same? If it is, then we need to also document that and also put it in the minutes. There's a couple of ways you can do that. You can put it in the minutes. Maybe the treasurer deacon or head deacon has a meeting with the pastor and they put it in the minutes and they accept what he wants for housing. That doesn't mean it's approval. It means that the pastor wants this much housing and you're acknowledging that, and you're going to do those things in his payroll for 2021. So make sure that you do that. And also, you want to make sure that your treasurer signs something. I always have an action form, and we have some of those on file where we do the pastor's housing allowance and we have the treasurer sign it. And maybe the head deacon, but at least the treasurer. And that goes in the pastor's employee folder. So make sure that you're doing those things. But those are the two biggest mistakes, the ones I mentioned at the end. The FICA tax on ministers and also the pastor's housing allowance. What's allowed, what's not allowed, those kind of things. Payroll can be very time-consuming nightmare for churches, organizations, and small businesses as well. Can be a complicated thing. It's very tedious, but it needs to be done correctly, because this part is what you are reporting, churches, to the IRS. You are responsible to them for doing that. This is not a separation of church and state issue. Payroll is something that every U.S. citizen has to report to the government on their payroll. Every employer, regardless if a church, nonprofit, or small business, you have to do that. So they will check you, and they can come in and check you and send notices and penalties. So be very careful. Make sure you're doing those things. Maybe you especially need somebody that's a church expert that understands what church and pastoral, all those kind of payrolls. It is different than a small business. It is different. Also, your accountants need to be an expert in that, in what they're reporting and taxes they're doing for you. But if the payroll is done correctly through the year, the accountants can take that and it should be reported very easily. So you need a church expert. Most churches rely on volunteers or maybe a certain accounting staff that is in a business, but they've never worked in a church system, or they don't understand church payroll. It's very important you get the right people, and churches can have tax issues. I've seen all kinds of things, as well as with your 941s and reporting, or your state, and you don't want to avoid those things. So we at Pro Support Staff, we do it for very inexpensive. We could process your payroll, whether you're 1 or 25, or I process a payroll of 144. Our company does. So, but we understand churches, we understand ministry. We do also have experts on our team that understand small business. I was in a small business for most of my life. So I want to encourage you, if you need help, please call us, contact us, send us an email at info@prosupportstaff.com. Go on our website, prosupportstaff.com, and sign up for a consultation. That it costs you nothing, but keep your payroll right. And I hope today that this evaluation of payroll has helped you. And so if you have any questions, just give us a call. But we're always here to help. And hey, Merry Christmas.